welcome. As Susanna said, my name is Caroline Williams and I'm the publisher at Nelson's Engage, and I'm working on the new edition of Outdoor and Environmental Studies, the 5th edition, which is kind of extraordinary actually. So just to begin with, just going to read the acknowledgement to country, except it's not moving. There we go. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands of all First Nations peoples of Australia. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. We recognise the continuing connection of First Nations peoples to the land, air and waters, and thank them for protecting these lands, waters and ecosystems since time immemorial. Okay, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be emailed out next week to anyone who's registered, including the slides, which are always useful. We always get lots of questions about that, so they will come to you too. Please put in any questions in the Q&A and comments in the chat, and we'll get to them at the very end. We've set aside some time to try and answer as many questions as we can. Those that we can't or we don't get enough time to, we will definitely follow up either with you individually, or we'll include some sort of general answers to Q&A that we think you all would be interested in knowing in the presentation when we distribute it. Your Outdoor and Environmental Studies book, student book that you get as part of registering for this webinar, will be sent out upon publication towards the end of the year. And there's also a contact there if you've got any questions, an email address to contact us if you've got any questions after the event. Yes. Okay. So we're in between slides here, but I'm really honoured today to introduce our two presenters, Belinda Dalziel and Jarrod Paine. Belinda and Jarrod are currently writing a wave of webinars. I think it's coming towards the end, or a bit of a pause, in support of the revised OES study design in their capacity as members of the review panel, and today as authors of our new edition of Nelson Outdoor and Environmental Studies. They are both very experienced OES teachers and passionate advocates for the subject from both a teaching and a learning perspective. Their passion and expertise, along with their deep understanding of the revised study design, have made them incredible additions to our author team for this edition, joining the wonderful Lee Park, who has been working on this series since its inception. They have all worked tirelessly for the past 9 to 10 months to create what we hope will be a really rich, engaging and comprehensive resources for both students and teachers. It feels really great, I think I speak for Belinda and Jarrod here too, to be finally at the point where we can begin to show the fruits of all of that labour. So yeah, it's an exciting night for us really, and we're really happy to be here. So over to you, Belinda and Jarrod. Oh, actually, sorry, I'll talk a little, maybe I'll talk quickly. We're just going to give you an overview of the study design, snapshots of the revision, and Belinda and Jarrod are the perfect people to do that. And then we'll talk to you about how our new edition of Nelson Outdoor and Environmental Studies will support you and your students, give you a sense of the overall approach, talk through some of the key features, and give you a brief introduction towards the end to Nelson MindTap, which is our new sort of online platform. And then we'll have a session for Q&A. And now it's over to Jarrod and Belinda.
Hello everyone, we'll just pop through to the next slide. Welcome. Most of you have probably listened to a few webinars about the changes, so I'll just go to the, thank you. Just some of the main changes for those of you that are not fresh with the new the revised content. There's been a strengthening of an experiential learning focus with suggested time in outdoor environments for outdoor experiences to occur. This is culminated with the new area study 3, which aligns with unit 1, 2, and also sits at the end of unit 4, and that sort of updates and replaces those journal tasks in the current study design. There's a new element called the cross-study specifications within the study design itself, which kind of underpins the reasoning for the study. There's been an expanded focus on Indigenous Australians' knowledge, culture and history, as well as a further strengthening of sustainability and climate change. That's scaffolded through units 1 through to 4. And there has been a strengthening of assessment types and mark allocation, particularly for Unit 3 and 4. More case studies, data analysis, assessment task styles, sort of to replace the structured questions. Jarrod's going to talk through Unit 1.
Yes, g'day everyone. Jarrod Paine here, or some of you will know me as JP. I think I'm coming through all right there. Belle, can you hear me okay? Yeah, cool. So yeah, Unit 1, so it's all happening. This is very exciting. Thanks for joining us. A brief overview, and as Belle did kind of hint at, there's a bit of information out there and other webinars that are recorded to get a more in-depth dive into these, but we know it's important to cover it in this webinar now and rolling into the textbook. So Area Study 1, Unit 1, a reduction in key knowledge from 6 points to 4 points. That's partly recognising that we have added as a revised team in Area Study 3, so it needs to even out. You'll see a new addition to the first dot point, including Indigenous peoples in it, and that really sets the theme up for the whole of Unit 1 to 4 of OES in this revised study design. There is a massive focus and respect coming through to studying and working with Indigenous peoples in understanding relationships with outdoor environments, something we're really proud of to be involved in. Other changes, the word biome has come through. A few just word changes existing in this Unit 1. So biome has replaced some other bits, whereas types of environments. Into Area of Study 2, some people cheer, some people don't, but the Code of Conduct dot point has been removed from the area of study there. But key practical skills that did used to exist there in the old study design have moved through to the new Area of Study 3. Another simple word change, depictions, has been attempted or has been used throughout the complete study design. So portrayals doesn't exist as a description within this area of study differently to other spots in the group in the book. So trying to get that commonality of language throughout the book, throughout the study design, my bad, has begun here. Now, Area Study 3, and we know there's lots of questions and lots of excitements and trepidations about Area Study 3. Area Study 3 in Unit 1 is about safe and sustainable participation by students in outdoor experiences. And it does have the idea of a logbook recording learning, and it has replaced all the journal tasks of the previous study design or study designs. So the key practical skills do exist in this Area of Study 3 and are clearly laid out in their different versions. I won't read them out now. We can find all that information when we get to it. Moving on to Unit 2. Next slide, please, Caroline. What's new? A reduction in Area of Study 1 from 5 to 3. And then a fresh dot point that reads out as Indigenous peoples' land management understandings and perspectives of an outdoor environment. So there's, maybe the first major dot point that you'll see that comes in that's got this strong Indigenous focus. It's really looking at, historical perspectives and moving through to contemporary perspectives of Indigenous peoples within management of land and connection with country. It's an exciting dot point that threads through really well into Unit 3-4. So it's built as a scaffolding of knowledge kind of thing. The other exciting bit that's come into Area Study 1 is vocational perspectives. This is a pretty cool one. Been fun to write within the textbook and to think about teaching as far as, where do students go with this subject? Where can they go when they're studying as a job? And let's put it in front and center in the study design and learn about some different people working in the outdoors, from teachers to rangers to scientists, and a few other ones, of course. Area Study 2, this has seen an increase in key knowledge, fear not, from 4 to 5. Sometimes where there's an increase in key knowledge points, we've reduced the size, the range within a point. The previous study design had a lot of triple or quadruple barreled dot points where you needed to study each bit, whereas this study design has more of choose one of or two of a list that might exist. The other bits that have added into Area Study 2 is threatened species have come down into Area Study 2 in Unit 2. They still exist in Unit 4, but we're bringing in some of that study into this area of study. Again, it's a great scaffold, really great for students who only study Unit 1 and 2, but also good for those that follow through the complete course. Area Study 3 does exist within here again, a practical skills kind of area of study with the goal of independent or peer-led participation in outdoor environments by the students. So really growing their interactions with outdoor environments and how they can observe human interactions, including their own, with outdoor environments. So, a great few changes. I suppose I'd summarize by saying Unit 1 and 2, apart from Area Study 3, which clearly is a major change, as a perspective of looking at it. No quantum changes within these 2 units as far as surprises. We hope it lays out well, and indeed the textbook, which we'll explain later, does cover anything new with this revised edition really well. So that's Unit 2. I'll throw over to you, Belle, for Unit 3.
Great. Thanks, JP. So in terms of Unit 3, there's just been some strengthening of a lot of key knowledge here, as well as key skills. Historical time periods have been strengthened in terms of having defined times. So I think a little bit easier to teach, and also looking at a specific outdoor environment as influenced in a local or visited outdoor environment for those historical time periods. So we're really looking for that case study of that one environment and over time in a historical context. Particularly the next key knowledge point about environmentalism, it's sort of the merge of what is in the current study design, environmentalism and the resulting influence on political parties and policies. That's been emerged. So a nice tight correlation between what has occurred, whether we're looking at the Franklin or Lake Pedder, the Franklin and Lake Pedder or Little Desert, and in terms of how that then shaped political policy during that time. In Area Study 2, we're looking at Indigenous people's custodianship of outdoor environments, including the formation of land and water councils and their role in contemporary. Also looking at economic relationships that has replaced essentially tourism and primary industry, so it's been a strengthening there. Most of you will note here that there has been a strengthening, of the contemporary relationships, and conflicts has come into from Unit 4 into here as well, and to be taught in this current decade. Area Study 2 for Unit 3 is looking at in this current decade, so really contemporary in terms of the context of the information. There is also an environmental issue in Australia we're wanting students to particularly focus in on, and then look at a related policy from a major political party, and that is prescribed within the study design as well. So there's just a focus with Area Study 2 looking at the most contemporary nature of our time. I will turn over to Unit 4. Thank you. Unit 4, sustainable outdoor environments. Most people will be pleased to know the state of the environment report has been removed. We've had a strengthening in terms of the pillars of sustainability. Sustainable development has also been removed. We're looking at sustainability and the 3 pillars and interdependence between those pillars. In terms of the impacts on society, there has been some new threats particularly added that will help to strengthen that particular point. And we're obviously looking again at the impact on society, so the people and also outdoor environments. And this is a new point that I think that will really encourage students to sort of have some scope in relation to climate change. We know that climate change can sort of has those negative connotations, and we really want students to sort of have some strategies to tackle that and to think about the positives that can come across with mitigation strategies. So it's a real scaffold here where students will look at like a local climate change policy, so perhaps in their local council area, and then a national, so an Australia-wide climate change policy, and then an international climate change policy, and that will correlate with the mitigation strategy, so something to combat climate change. So sort of that 3-level approach. In terms of Unit 4, we've had a strengthening of Indigenous land management strategies as well as non-Indigenous in terms of looking at contemporary Indigenous land management strategies in connection with non-Indigenous, so as well as private and public land management strategies, how they all are identified and at times connect. There's been an update on policies, acts and conventions. There's been a strengthening. There's been some new policies added in terms of the content here. And particularly there's a more detailed approach. We're really looking at students to focus on a specific outdoor environment, ecological community, in relation to those acts or conventions. So instead of just generically learning the Flora and Fauna Guarantee Act or Amended Act rather, we're looking at students to know that act but know a specific species within that act or a location as an environment or an ecological community, and understand some management strategies that go with that. So they certainly have a greater understanding instead of just that broad-based knowledge. Sorry, flicking over. Yep, I'm obviously a little bit lost. In terms of Area Study 3 for Unit 4, some people may have listened to some previous webinars. We know that Area Study 3, although it sits at the end of Unit 4, it actually begins at the start of Unit 3. So it's investigating outdoor environments. It does replace the previous journal sacks for Unit 3 from the previous study design. Area Study 3 is threaded within each unit, and please don't think it's added on to the end of Unit 4. It just merely sits there, but can be assessed at any time in Unit 4. So at the beginning of Unit 3, at the very beginning, whether you're doing a Head Start program at the end of this year or perhaps the start of next year, you as the teacher will select 4 key knowledge points that your students in your class will study, as well as experiencing 2 outdoor environments. So you'll select 4 key knowledge points from Units 3 and 4. So ideally, probably one from each area study 1, Unit 3, Area Study 2, Unit 3, etc. into Unit 4. And you will use those as a focus for your Area Study 3, your investigation with your students. So they will hopefully be able to visit 2 outdoor environments as a focus for their primary data collection. As to kind of document that, students will use a logbook to document primary data. And this is referenced in the study as a means of students to keep their records of practical activities, observations of the key knowledge. And I've got some examples coming. At the end of sometime in Unit 4, students will be able to complete Area Study 3, as in the written report, at any time in Unit 4. It doesn't have to be at the end of Unit 4. It doesn't need to be in that September timeframe. It can be at any time in Unit 4, as long as they have able to suffice their investigation, meaning they've visited 2 outdoor environments and they've collected that primary data and supplemented it with secondary data into their logbooks. Then they can use that logbook to help them with that written report. I'll just flick over. Within the textbook, we spent quite a lot of time. There is a whole chapter designated for Unit 4 Area Study 3, and there are downloadable planners. This would be one small example. For example, this is what you would probably give your students at the start of Unit 3. As a teacher, obviously, perhaps a little bit more organisation than in previous years. If you're a teacher that sort of plans your camps as the year goes, I know a lot of teachers have to input their sort of experience dates into school calendars even now. But essentially, you will pick as a teacher 4 key knowledge points across Units 3 and 4, encompassing 2 outdoor environments, and then your class will complete that as their investigation for the year. So this will be one example of templates that are available in that chapter 11 within the text. If Caroline can flick onto the next one, there's another one. This is an example of a logbook template. It's a completed logbook template, some ideas in terms of how primary and secondary data is collected. These will be blank, downloadable, with some other examples that Caroline will speak to in terms of Nelson MindTap. But these examples are all within a whole chapter, completely designated to Area Study 3. There is also worked examples of what is primary data, what is secondary data, how to write a written report, what is a body, introduction, conclusion. There is a whole lot of information to hopefully empower students and teachers to be able to complete the written report to the best of their abilities. I think I'll hand over to you now, Caroline.
Sorry, it's just stuck. There we go. So here's the cover of our new edition coming up. So the next section, Belinda and Jarrod really are going to take this, but I just wanted to frame it a little bit, just from a publishing perspective, just to give you some insights into the process, I guess. So this section, we're just going to look at how our new edition will support you and your students. Oops, sorry. So just as part of the process of coming up with a new edition, mainly when we know a new study design is coming, we like to do a lot of research, market research, talk to teachers and ideally students. And there might be some of you here or listening to this who took part in the survey that was sent out late last year. So thank you for your feedback. It's fantastic. So as part of our research, we surveyed a group of teachers and asked them what they'd like to see in the new edition. And they told us that they were looking for clear alignment with the revised study design, more learning activities, questions, vocab clarifications, topic outcome questions, and end of chapter revision questions. More support for the literacy demands of OES, more exam support, so sample exam questions, exemplar answers, and exam revision techniques tailored to the subject, and more differentiation, including extension activities and greater scaffolding and support for less confident students. And this feedback has really formed the basis of our approach to the new edition. So I just wanted to frame that a little bit as you then start looking at the sample pages that Belinda and Jarrod will sort of explore with you. This really has informed, and I think I'd like to think we can put a tick against all of those, because I think we have really delivered on those 5 points. I hope you'll agree. So I guess that's the next stage. So I'll pass on to, is it Belinda, I think, the next stage, or Jarrod? Jarrod, sorry.
Yeah, so thanks, Caroline. Yeah, the overall approach was really built, taking large consideration into that feedback. So thank you to those folk that gave that feedback to Caroline and Nelson MindTap, because that really informed us as authors as how to lay this out and make it an easy to reference, and to have some, you'll know what's coming each chapter. So it's clearly laid out for easy reference. There's rich learning activities and banks of questions. Oh, we jumped ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay. I can jump around, Rich. And banks of questions at the end of each key knowledge learning point, so or module as they're kind of referred to within the book. And then there's end of chapter exam style questions. There's key terms per chapter, and I'll show you. We're about to look at some first pages, everybody, and you'll see what some of these things are. So key terms per chapter, and each chapter is a single area of study. And then that area of study is broken into the key knowledge points, which are modules. So it's all enclosed. And the next slide, not yet, Caroline, but we'll look at the how clear that is with the contents. There's a glossary at the end of each unit, and then a per key knowledge summary at the beginning of the chapter. So Bal will talk a little bit about that one when we look at first pages. There's lots of easy to reference little bits on the side to Nelson MindTap. So that's the online version where there's a ton of downloadable click and go resources sitting there. There's reference everywhere. You'll see them, and then spotlight stimulus at the start of the chapter to frame the knowledge. And I'll show you what that is on the next slide. So overall, we've gone for a real cohesive approach. So you should see a similar layout per chapter. There's 11 chapters to match the 11 areas of study across unit 1 to 4. Clear structure that rolls through, so you'll see how it flows, and clearly aligned to the revised study design. So you'll see how that fits together. We're really quite proud and chuffed to see how it looks. Can you flip to the next slide, please, Caroline? And we'll look at perhaps a picture of the book. Hooray, the contents, the least exciting a bit for everyone to look at picture-wise, but this gives an idea of how it's laid out. One chapter per area of study. Each module within the chapter covers a key knowledge point. And then at the end of each chapter, you can see the bottom bubble there. There's end of chapter exam style questions, the answers or exemplar style answers and marking guide are within Nelson MindTap for you to download. And then a check your understanding checklist. So you can see how it's built that way. Heaps of summaries for revision and concept questions built with the idea of helping learners with lower literacy all the way up to ones who are after a challenge beyond perhaps what some of the key knowledge points require. To really spark the interest in those really excited students. I think over to you, Bel.
Yes. So as JP alluded to, there's a lot of key features we've updated within the new book. So clear headings, making the commencement of each key knowledge point and the conclusion. So literally sort of like within each chapter, obviously, as JP said, it's each area study, but there is a key knowledge point at the start, and it's that continuous approach. Chunking of text and the use of images and infographics to enhance student engagement. We've really tried to use as much or as many images as we possibly were allowed to engage our students in our classes. Current and relevant case studies. We've really the author team spent a lot of time literally getting the most up-to-date resources we could possibly get, and most relevant and recent case studies of local environments and a range of local environments. We did all spend time as an author team, not just focusing on one area or an area we knew. We've tried to spread the case studies across the state to encompass, all students. Learning activities per key knowledge point provide opportunities for students to apply their knowledge. So it's that real scaffold approach, larger bits of contents broken into smaller, and then some case studies to supplement that. list of key concepts at the end of each module, or sort of after the end of each key knowledge point. So those key words that you really want students to take away from that particular key knowledge point. And again, key concept questions at the end of each module, which essentially follows Bloom's taxonomy. We've got that kind of recall question, and going all the way through to extensions. It's a real scaffold. So at the end of every key knowledge point, there is a set of questions, I think between 8 and sort of 15, and then at the end of the chapter is the VCAR style question. So we've certainly upped the amount of questions, the volume of questions within the book compared to the current edition. We've got our little fun facts and glossary definitions in the margins. So within both the internal and external margins, there's some fun facts or fast facts about the particular content, and also glossary definition of the keywords. And I think that's something that students tend to like. They want clarity, and perhaps teachers like clarity as well with certain concepts, particularly of some new content. We've used some examples of what we called spotlight boxes to highlight case studies or knowledge extensions, and they do sit perhaps as well at the start of some of the chapters to really get the students sort of engaged and thinking about what the content is that is coming. We'll definitely talk to Caroline. I've talked about Nelson MindTap, the online sort of version, soon. But there's links to Nelson MindTap throughout the book. So those MindTap resources will be something like case studies or links. We know in our course that there is a lot of videos or ideas that are constantly evolving on certain sites. So they will be updated regularly as well. We've also got a section here, notes for the exam, so continually providing advice for exam success. We know that's a crucial element of this subject, and I'd just also like to note that all of these examples of questions, VCAR style questions, that is actually in the book from units 1 to 4. It's not just for the 3-4 content, it's actually for 1-2 as well. So I do think the continuity that students will experience in using this book, literally the day they use it, the start of, if they pick it up in unit 1 all the way through to unit 4, it has that same approach. And that's what we've really tried as an author team to provide. And I think I'm throwing over to Jarrod.
I think you got one more, Belle. One more. Do you want to do this one?
Sorry. Yes, I'll do this one. Lovely. Great. Oh, doesn't this look lovely? So unit 1, sustainable outdoor environments. So again, the introduction for each unit or each chapter has got a sort of a blurb about what that content is, and then it's got the breakdown of the chapters that sit within that area of study or unit rather. So it's very clear for all the students to see and begin engaging with.
Oh, and the bogong moss. And here we have, this is literally first pages getting looked at, everyone. So exciting times. Here's what a chapter opener looks like. You'll see a lot of colour, a lot of different boxing, a lot of bits to try and pop out and capture the attention of us as teachers and for our students. It's got all the overview, one-stop shop kind of place. A big list of key terms will exist in there, but then they're unpacked as a student moves through the chapter, and then the glossary, describing all of them at the end of each unit. Nelson MindTap links, so where to get more info. It's a great little start to describe each chapter, and remembering a chapter per area of study. Next slide, Caroline. Maybe to you, Belle.
This is an example of the spotlight. So at the start of this particular chapter, obviously the key knowledge is moving the students to study Indigenous peoples and non-Indigenous peoples' ways of knowing outdoor environments. So this particular spotlight story is to try and, capture students' attention, bring them in about the current concept. And like Jarrod alluded to, each module begins with the key knowledge and the key skills. And we know that, the study design essentially, is the Bible. We need to refer to that. And so having this threaded within the beginning or throughout each chapter is something that we really wanted to make sure that was clear, that students could reference.
Moving on, as you flip through the chapter, you'll see different things. Belle mentioned the spotlight boxes, so little activities. It could be just a brief activity, or the green heading one there, the learning activity, moving toward having questions or other website links or links to Nelson MindTap. So you'll see contemporary new versions of those things popping up per key knowledge point. So there's a lot of opportunities to take learning outside of the book from within the book. Then on our right is an example of how key terms are highlighted within the text, and then definitions are in the margins. That was a great part of the previous edition and been carried through and strengthened in this new edition as well.
This is an example towards the end of the module, or sorry, throughout. So there's some little notes for the exam. So I alluded to the fast facts, something sort of in addition to the content or that complements the content, and sort of within the body of each module or key knowledge sort of section is some ideas for students to make sure they know for the exam. Okay, so they can understand, apply, analyze all those keywords that we need to encourage students to hone in on. Also some logbook activities. So particularly as we're going through, this is obviously an example for Unit 1, there'll be some ideas for logbook activities to supplement that as we move through as well. So not only that will encourage students, but probably in the first few years as well, to encourage students to get students to begin to start thinking and complete activities in regarding their logbooks.
So case studies, we've mentioned a little bit. Case studies have existed in previous editions. They're fantastic bits that have, we've gone out and researched and found some contemporary versions in various environments. You'll see 1 to 2 of them per module. They'll have a stimulus and also questions. So this is where you're starting to see more questions appear in this edition of the textbook. You can see them on the right-hand side, their case study questions, just to really link in and get students reading that and being a bit of plug and play for you as a teacher to be able to go, hey, this can help me out, and this could be a revision of a lesson, or you can use them differently, but you'll know that they're there in each chapter. You've got these resources ready to help deliver some excellent learning. I won't talk about key concepts and concept questions because they come up on the next one.
Great. So at the end of each module, or at the end of each key knowledge point, is these key concepts. So it summarizes the essence of what we're trying to achieve here. So these are kind of little revision prompts that the students can make sure they have a clear understanding on. I might just flick back one, Caroline. Oh, sorry, flick forward again. No, sorry, one more. Yep. This is an example of the questions that are after each module. Okay, so this is literally after each key knowledge point, obviously all the content, case studies, learning activities, whatnot, then those the key concepts like the summary, and these are the concept questions. So, there might be 5, 6 of these within one chapter, or more, particularly for an area study. So there is a lot more volume of questions, and it really shows you there that kind of Bloom's taxonomy in terms of remembering, understanding, applying, and then we've got that extension like predict, enhance. So we've really spent a lot of time making sure that there is a greater volume of questions, but also questions for varying learners in your classroom. These will be available on Nelson MindTap sort of to download, so students can essentially complete this as a worksheet or online or in their books. But yeah, there is definitely a scaffold approach to the questions we've been able to put in each module.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, yeah. I was looking for another slide there, but we've got this one in here. So key features at the end of each chapter, you will see an extended or extension learning activity. So something that's a bit bulky, a bit bigger, to do with one of the larger key knowledge points within an area study. And you're going to see exam style questions. So VCAR style questions that in the book written as questions, and then through Nelson MindTap, you can access exemplar student style answers to the questions along with a marking guide. So you can use them. You've got, what is it? I think I counted over 100 exam style questions within this book on every single key knowledge area. Then we got this really fantastic bit called a knowledge checklist per outcome. Great revision tool. It exists within the textbook where students can self-assess a little bit and maybe combine with you as a teacher to go, hey, I don't know anything about what that means. What do you mean by that, JP? So a real chance to use the book as a to and fro between student and teacher. And then glossaries of the key terms will be at the end of each unit. So not each chapter, but each unit. So to how many area studies, you'll find that there. So Do you want to talk to that one, Belle?
Yeah, this would be just an example of the extended learning activity at the end of most chapters. This essentially could be a form of a practice sack that you could get students to engage in, and you could extend yourself. You could apply more questions, change up the questions, etc., but could give also a template in years to come for you to use this as a practice sack. So this essentially is really trying to encourage those students to go beyond the boundary of structured questions and have a little bit of that analysis in application.
So here's those end of chapter exam style questions. It's nothing amazing to look at, but this is, the core of a great part of this book, that we've got this at the end of every chapter from Unit 1 all the way through to Year 12. So again, students are getting used to the language of our subject and answering these questions, and you choose how you use them, whether you use them at all, of course, we'd encourage it. But a question or two per key knowledge point will exist within that area. And then there's that little sophisticated table of the check your knowledge and skills. And then the student can assess, am I developing my knowledge in that area? Am I consolidating, or am I exam ready? So they can look through that. You can add more to that, but a great basis and template to be a revision checker for students. That'll be a downloadable version of Nelson MindTap as well, as is each of these bits that are really interactive. It's a fantastic interplay between old school paper book with a new school online resource that you'll access through your purchase of the book and class set. So very exciting. I think next slide, Caroline.
Yeah,
and
so
coming back to you. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Is that, go for
Did
it.
you want to say anything, Belinda?
No, I was just going to say, to reiterate what Jarrod said, that all those case studies, example questions, learning activities, they'll be all downloadable. So they'll be all like little worksheets that if you'd like to do them, you can, and leave them perhaps if you're away or something like that. So in terms of ease of use, it's something that we've really factored in.
Great. I just wanted to talk really briefly about Nelson MindTap, which is a new online course delivery platform, and it'll be coming with your new edition. And I just wanted to give you a bit of a snapshot of what will be available on it. You can see there's a lot of student resources. I think one of the more powerful sort of aspects of this is that some of the like the key concept questions and the exam questions, you can actually assign them to groups of students. So it gives you that power within the platform to sort of customize the learning path for your students, but also that ability to assign particular chunks of questions or activities to particular students. So I think that's a really powerful tool. We've sort of talked through most of them. The templates are planning and recording outdoor experiences for Area of Study 3. So they'll be editable, obviously, so you can use them and adapt them. In the teacher resources, there'll be teaching planners to help you sort of plan for the new study design, which I imagine is because it's been such a major revision that's an area of anxiety. So, there's obviously, we're here to support you in that sort of sense, that Belinda, Jarrod and Lee have done a lot of work on that. There'll be chapter summaries in PowerPoint, also editable, obviously, for you to add to. There'll be glossary quizzes. We'll have web links and video web links and exam support. Some of the exam support, just to highlight, won't be available until next year when the BCAA release their exam advice. But yeah, so this is something to look forward to. It'll be out at the same time as the book, so you can explore, and there'll be a lot of support from Nelson to get you up and running so that you're ready to go in the new year. But I think that's it. This is a really exciting new platform that we're offering as part of this new edition, which is fantastic. And now, if I can get it to work, I'm going to pass on to Jill, who's going to talk a little bit about the sales aspect of presentation.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Jarrod and Belle. That was great. So, as mentioned, we've heard a lot about Nelson MindTap. It is our preferred digital platform for this new edition. We are saying it is accessible to schools who basically purchase this as class sets or book listing schools. We do have the release date end of October. So that's in preparation for you in terms of early commencement and planning. We also have the print copies available in November. Some of the pricing options we've got there is printed book and the Nelson MindTap courseware. It's $82.95. And as well as, if you're just looking at just the MindTap courseware, it's $49.95. It's definitely worth to mention that this access will cover students for the 2-year period. So moving on. So to learn more about this new edition, they're all, if you're already going to be book listing this new text, so definitely reach out to one of your learning consultant, myself, Jill Lim, we have Anne-Marie Mosley, and Kerry Thomas. And we will get you set up, rolled out to support you with your access to your school.